Hi, this is Sarah Alexander, and this is my Module 12 for EDL 850 about tort liability. Tort liability is actionable or civil wrong committed against one person by another that is independent of contract. There are two different types of tort liabilities. There's intentional and unintentional. The intentional torts involve deliberate actions such as assault, battery, defamation. Unintentional tort can look like negligence. In this first case of Frame versus Comax, a science teacher was accused of assault and battery. It was a teacher who was subbing for another class, and the class was extremely unruly, and the teacher requested that a couple of students who were being disruptive leave the classroom. One student refused to leave the classroom, so the teacher went up and grabbed the student's arm and walked the student out of the classroom. But on the way out of the classroom, the student fell into a podium and then bumped into the blackboard. So in that case, the ruling was the teacher did commit battery, but that it was justified. As far as reactive measures at my school, if something like this were to happen, I believe that there would be some training on other ways to remove students from the class. There would be procedures in place for who you could call on to help support you if you're having concerns with a student. I also feel like with proactive measures to prevent this, having specific expectations in place as far as what will happen if students are being disruptive. As far as the ethics involved with this, I think it goes back to having a plan in place and treating students in a safe manner. And in this particular case, it didn't sound as if the student was harming anyone else. It almost, to me, sounded like a power struggle of this student not getting up and walking. So in my personal opinion, I feel like this was not a situation where maybe a teacher should have touched a student. But I feel like maybe I don't have enough information to make that kind of judgment call. For the second case, Flanagan versus Canton, this was a 5th grade student who was pushed in a locker room. It sounds like all of the students were having a very difficult time getting along. The PE teacher was talking with a group of students. He sent them back into the locker room because of behavior issues. And while the PE teacher was talking to one student in particular about their behaviors, a boy was pushed in the locker room, and he was hurt, and it did lead to an emergency surgery. And the ruling in this case was that the PE teacher did not adequately supervise the students, and this is specifically because these students were unruly prior to going into the locker room. They were having issues, so that would have been a situation where the PE teacher should not have left them unsupervised. As far as reactive, I think that we would need to have, possibly in PE, an extra adult that was available to be in the PE room, in the locker room, to help supervise. Proactive would be just having those conversations with students about, being safe. I also think going back to the supervision and making sure that there is always eyes on students. While we can't always prevent situations like this occurring, it's not possible for us to have our eyes on students at all times, but this could have been prevented with, being in control of supervising the students based on their behaviors that they were showing. As far as the ethics involved, I feel as if, it would be very important for a good reminder that of being aware of student safety, and also talking about how supervision is so important. I think with all of these cases, I was just reminded how important every single action we have is, and how supervision is key. For the third case study, or court case, Brahatic versus Millard School District. This occurred in a PE class. It was an indoor PE class because of the rainy weather, and they were teaching about golfing, and it was a 2-day course, and the first day was all about safety. The second day they were able to do some practicing, and this student in particular was not at the first day of the PE class where they discussed the safety of golf club use, and on the second day he was there and he was able to participate, and he was hit by a golf club in PE, and he ended up passing away, dying from that golf club. And with this case, there was no adult that saw the incident occur. There were 2 adults in the room, and neither of them saw this situation occurring. And another important fact about this case is that the 2 teachers were not following the strict safety procedures related with these golf lessons. There was a specific way that it needed to be conducted, and they failed to follow that plan, and because of that, there was a lack of supervision. And in this case, the ruling was in favor of the student's family, and that was based on negligence and lack of supervision. For this situation, reactive, I think reminding people, reminding the staff how important it is to follow safety procedures, especially in PE. There's a reason that those safety plans are in place, and that lesson was planned in a very specific way. Also, in the future, proactively, perhaps using safety equipment such as masks or helmets, even in something such as golf, where they typically don't wear safety guards like that. But that would be a good way to protect our students in situations that can be potentially harmful. In this fourth case, the Johnson versus Millard School District, a music teacher taught the class the game London Bridge is Falling Down, and they did explain the rules and explained to be safe, and after teaching the rules and getting the game started, the very first student who went up to play the game, the teacher then turned around and did something else and was not monitoring. So that student actually was thrown by the other 2 students and hit their head and ended up with 50 stitches. And this was again due to a lack of supervision. Reactively to this, supervision is key, reminding staff that you can not have your eyes off of students. And it sounds like maybe this teacher was writing something on the board, so maybe something in regards to those things. The expectation is that, that time is not used as almost a planned time to put things on the board. That should be a time where you should be monitoring your students, especially in a time when they had just learned a game. Proactively, I feel that not all of these accidents can be prevent it. The kids could have been playing this kind of a simple game out on the playground and they could have gotten hurt. But providing directions and expectations for every single activity and then monitoring until they have mastered those and then continuing to monitor. But I do understand that turning around to write something on the board is something that all teachers do. It's part of the job, but making sure that students are safe prior to turning away. And then for the last case study, Barrett versus Wichita Public Schools, this was a case of there was a football training, and this was an all-day training, and it sounds like it was very hot out, and students were allowed to get frequent water breaks. This student in particular had mentioned that he was hot and very thirsty, so the coach did say, you may get a drink, and he did allow him to sit out. After the practice, the student was walking off of the field, and he passed out, and then he passed away. He died the next day. So in this case, the safety of the student was questioned, and whether or not they should have been practicing in that heat was also a major concern. Reactive to this, I believe talking about expectations, also talking about as far as the heat index, and I'm sure this district had a specific, weather heat index that they followed to know when they can be outside practicing and when they cannot. I do know in this case that the students were not wearing their pads, but they were wearing their helmets. So I think that's good that they were still being safe as far as wearing helmets. Proactively having those guidelines in place, and as far as heat index and water breaks, and ethically in this situation, I think just being aware and being mindful and watching the students and seeing how they're acting, and seeing, how hot they are getting and how warm they're getting, and is this best for what kids need? And obviously their lives, could possibly be at risk here. And in this particular case, the ruling was negligence and a lack of duty of care for that particular student. For this final slide, I have a list of the references that I used in order to put together this PowerPoint. Thank you for watching.